Chapter 9, Sophie Donnelly. My mother is the most generous, caring, good hearted, sympathetic person in the world. She even chose a career devoted to helping people. She's a saint. I always knew that lousy attitude was going to get us in trouble one day. Still, never in my wildest nightmares could I have imagined myself living with a refugee from Bizarro World. The stuff he scraped off his feet alone would have been enough to get the house condemned by the Board of Health. God only knew what was living in his hair. And his clothes? I was amazed they didn't get up and walk away on their own. Mom insisted he was very clean. I told you about her. Generous to a fault. He's been wearing the same stuff for the past 3 weeks, I accused. They just look the same because they're all cotton tie-dyes, she explained patiently. He has plenty of clothes. I drove out to Garland myself to pick up his things. I hope you brought extra shoes too, I put in. Somebody hung a pair of cornhusk sandals on the high voltage wires by the commuter line. I wonder who they belong to. I called Brad Pitt, but he's wearing his. Don't be so unkind, she told me sharply. The way those kids are teasing Cap is inhumane. Inhuman. Have a little compassion. Have a little compassion for me, I said sulkily. Joss was just dropping me off while the freakazoid was scraping a third world country off his feet. You know what he said? Is that your brother, Sophie? What did you tell him? What could I tell him? I said it was a homeless guy. A person can dream. My solemn vow, should Capricorn Anderson put the kibosh on my chances with Josh Weintraub, not even Mother's social worker training could save him. If Josh and I started dating, are you there, God? It's me, Sophie. There'd be no way to keep that space alien off the radar screen. I could have sworn there were 6 of him. Wherever I wanted to be, that's where he was. Squeaking the porch swing or hogging the kitchen table, eating those organic soy nuts Mom bought for him. He'd even started watching my favorite show, Trigonometry in Tears, the high school soap opera. Because he had never seen TV before, he was a total addict who barked out warnings and advice to the characters on the screen. Will you shut up? I yelled, not for the first time. Even though he was embarrassed, he still defended himself. Nick doesn't know that Allison found out he's been seeing Corinne on the side. They're actors. It's a story. They can't even hear you. And he understood, sort of, but he didn't stop talking to TV. It was just too new to him. How would I ever explain that to Josh? I needn't have worried. That relationship was over before it started. I probably should have just told Josh that Cap was my brother, or maybe my husband. It would have saved me the most boring date of my life. To think that I pulled strings and called in favors just to meet him? What a letdown. He talked about video games for 3 hours before telling me he was getting back together with his ex-girlfriend from Indiana. Rock on. So I wasn't in the best of moods when Josh took me home after the ordeal. There was only one thing that could have made this night any worse. FaceTime with my favorite Martian. He was waiting for me on the porch. Hi. Where's my mother? Around the corner at Peabody's, he told me. Quick. We should have just about an hour. I was wary. For what? To pick up a few more staples out of your feet. He held up the car keys and jingled them in front of me. Driving lessons. I stared at him. Driving lessons? From a little squirt like you? Then I remembered what Mom had told me, that Cap had been arrested and released for driving without a license. At that lawless flower child, Camp Dayglow, they probably let you drive when your foot could reach the pedal without breaking the moisture seal on your training pants. I know your other lessons got canceled, he went on. Oh, thanks, Mother. Someday I'll repay you by telling your personal business to every passing hobo. I felt betrayed, furious, and intrigued. My father was a total flake. He'd probably get around to giving me a lesson one day, but it wouldn't be pure random chance when and if that ever happened. And Mom's killer schedule didn't leave a lot of windows of opportunity. I wanted to drive. I needed a teacher, even if it had to be the freakazoid. I did a lot of things I'd promised myself I'd never do. I got in the car with him. I listened to him and did what he told me to do. That idiotic Zen hippie style of his turned out to be just right for a driving instructor. No matter what mistakes I made, it didn't seem to faze Cap, not even when I thought someone's driveway was a side street and turned onto it. Honest mistake, said Cap, but rattled, I stepped on the gas instead of brake. The Saturn burst forward. Suddenly, a white painted garage door loomed out of the darkness, coming up fast. I lost it. I didn't even have the sense to take my foot off the gas. I was in mid panic when Cap reached over and yanked on the steering wheel. We swung around, the tires of the Saturn churning soft earth as we plowed into a flower bed. The rough ride slowed us down long enough for him to reach over and shift into park. The car lurched to a halt. Abdominal breathing, he ordered quietly, in through the nose, out the mouth. But I almost. There's no almost, he lectured serenely. Only happened and didn't happen. This didn't happen. Get us out of here. I whimpered when my lungs refilled with air. You'll do that. It's a circular driveway. Just continue around. I was really panicking. Visions of an angry homeowner coming at us with a shotgun were whirling around my head. I can't. It's too narrow, and there are trees on both sides. I'll hit something. At that point, I didn't care if I never drove again. I just wanted to make it home alive and in something that still resembled a Saturn. He was endlessly patient. This is a philosophy Rain passed on to me when she taught me how to drive our truck. I very nearly hit him. This is no time for your hippy-dippy wisdom. But there was no stopping Cap when the subject was the immortal Rain. She said, if the front gets through, the rest will drag. I stared at him. That's philosophy? Rain used to drive a taxi in San Francisco before she formed Garland. I let out a nervous giggle, and it relaxed me. I put the car back in gear and aimed the hood between the two trees. May Mother never find out that I was piloting the precious Saturn on instructions from Rain, the face of so many of her childhood nightmares. When we reached the road, I was panting with pure relief. The freak of joy made me pull over while he went back and replanted all the flowers I'd spun up. I was so grateful I didn't even kill him. Surviving my first brush with disaster must have boosted my confidence because I was a better driver after that. In short order, I was tooling around the neighborhood with something approaching skill. Pretty soon, I even forgot that my learner's permit probably wasn't valid when I was in the car with someone even less qualified behind the wheel than I was. I was so wrapped up in the experience that it took me a few seconds to recognize the female pedestrian who just passed. My mother! I rasped. Oh man, we are so busted. He didn't seem to understand. Why? Think for once in your life. What does neither of us have? A driver's license, maybe? This was more serious than a few uprooted chrysanthemums. We were doing something highly illegal. If she catches us, I'll be grounded till I'm 40, and you'll be sleeping in the street. For the first time, he seemed to realize that we weren't playing by hippie rules. Obviously, Mom hadn't noticed her car because she wasn't sprinting after us, yelling. Hands trembling, I turned off the block and we switched drivers. I may have been bugging out, but I have to say, Cap was totally cool under pressure. We had to go out of our way to avoid passing Mom again, but he whipped that car around corners, through darkened streets, and up into our driveway. We sprinted in the back door and were on the couch in front of trigonometry and tears when she came in. She regarded me suspiciously. What? I immediately gasped the weak spot in our cover. Mother had left 2 teenagers at war only to return home to a peace treaty. So I turned to Cap and snarled, keep your split ends off my side of the couch. That seemed to mollify her. It was exactly the kind of thing I'd been saying to Cap ever since he'd arrived at our house 3 weeks before. But my heart wasn't in it that night.